Welcome back to the Greg McAfee Show, where we discuss steps to successful entrepreneurship, how to take your business to new heights, and ultimately follow your dreams. Today, we are privileged to have Sean Robertson and Bart James from the ACCA on our show today. Today, we're going to be talking about a lot of different things, from the new refrigerant to doing away with 80% furnaces. Why? But we're going to be talking about a lot of different things, and membership to the ACCA and just how important it is. So these two guys know what they're doing, and we're going to find out more in a minute. So let's get started. Hey, this is Greg McAfee, and welcome to the Greg McAfee Show. Now let's get started. Welcome back to the Greg McAfee Show. Guys, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and just tell us just briefly a little bit about yourself, although I've already given the bio.
Sean, you want to lead us off?
Sure. Well, I'm Sean Robertson. I'm act as Vice President of Membership, Advocacy, and Events. Membership and events have been my portfolio for quite a while, but I'm eager to take on advocacy again. That's really where I've spent the entire rest of my career, helping other organizations inspire their advocates to build relationships with their elected officials. And that's really what we need here, where contractors, your elected officials need to be hearing how changes like we're about to hear impact your business, so that they're mindful of that when these proposals come up in front of them. So that's a lot of what we'll be talking about today.
Greg, thank you again for having us on. And we're Sean and the whole team. We're always excited a chance to visit with and talk to and learn from our members. We're here to work for not just the members of ACCA, but the entire HVAC contracting industry. And we're blessed to have our members do more than half the work in the U.S. So if you're not a member, please join. I think it's a great place to learn and network and all. But I'm Bart James, President of Air Conditioning Contractors America, as well as our Educational Institute, which is where many of you may know ACCA from our technical work on the load calculations that we work to maintain those standards, and just how to be a good quality contractor, which we need more of. And we hate that we've got this race to the bottom. So that's something ACCA is always working on, not only the standard, but making sure that it's a level playing field, whether it's for contractors or for funding taxpayer dollars, making sure that we're spending that towards things like in-demand jobs, like the ones that every person I know that's listening to this is struggling with, is to find the skilled men and women to work and be part of this amazing industry. So thanks again for having us on, Greg. Oh, background. Oh, that part.
Yeah.
I've been at ACCA. I came in 2016, leading our government relations, and in 18 became our president and CEO. I married into this world. Father-in-law is a contractor, member in Louisiana, more commercial, and got a residential line. And then brother-in-law over in Texas, also an HVAC contractor. So through 20 years of marriage and years of dating prior, I was blessed to come into an industry I felt like I knew a lot about and happy to be part of and work on. I love small business owners. So it's a cool thing. And I worked my prior life is more political, working as a consultant and a person helping get elected officials into office or getting folks to become elected officials. I served in President Bush's administration, and one of those was at the small business, and a lot of time on political campaigns. Home state, Arkansas, if you're picking up a little bit of an accent.
We appreciate that. So thanks, Bart. Thanks, Sean, for coming on my show. And we have listeners. We have a lot of HVAC business owners, and we have a lot of just the home service industry, from plumbers, electricians, roofers, and so on. And first, I want to start off with why is it important for contractors to be members of associations like this? Why is it so important? Because I think a lot of them don't understand the concept.
Well, Sean, I'll give my short take. When I first started, my predecessor was interviewing and hiring me, and I looked, I got access to our membership records here at ACCA, and I saw my father-in-law had been a member for well over a decade at that point. And I asked him about it, and he won't be a great example, but he'll be an example. He's like, what does membership cost? And I told him the price, and he's like, what do y'all do? I said, well, you've been a member for over a decade. How do you not know? And he's never opened an email or done anything at that point. And he said, why wouldn't I? I need more good things in my life. And that's what ACCA works on, is more good things. We're there. I love the fight part of what we do at ACCA. So the government relations, the lobbying, advocacy work we do, but we set the standards. So there is at least a working effort to create, a level playing field where contractors aren't always raced to the bottom. And we feel like, and I know the contractors that care do too, that their customers deserve to have good people, whether it's you or the next person that they choose to do the work, but that they get what they're paying for. And we're not. I mean, it kills me. So when I was doing my research to come to ACCA, half the installations in the country are losing 40% of their energy efficiency. And we've got, we'll talk about the craziness of DC, but it's hard not to just see how that impacts you all, your businesses, your teams, and ultimately the customer by the nonsense that's happening out there right now. So that's a little bit, Sean, you've got, I know, a great kind of elevator pitch.
Well, I just say, there's two ways to look at membership. I mean, you can look at the tangible benefits of membership, and ACCA really does have benefits. When you become a member, it's a membership for your entire company. That means everyone from technicians to HR to your service managers to the senior leadership team has access to really a bewildering array of benefits. And I could get into, resources to, from business templates to all the recorded sessions from all of our conferences. And I think our conferences are known for really lots of great peer content, hearing from your peers, not a bunch of glorified sales pitches like you get at a lot of conferences. And, all these tools to, build your business, but perhaps more importantly, to connect with best-in-class contractors. And so we've got things like our ACCA Mixed Groups program, and where you really get a trusted group of non-competing peers to exchange financials, and often they're really hard on each other, guiding their businesses forward, making tough decisions. Maybe that person you thought was performing great, they think that they're the toxic influence of the company that needs to go. And I've heard stories like that where people's impressions have completely changed overnight. But we're working on building those connections at all levels through contractor forum, and then even starting some service managers mixed groups and events like the service managers forums to sort of build those peer relationships further down within your company. Then I'd circle back and say that, yes, we've got these tangible benefits, and hopefully you'll see value there. But plenty of folks say, oh, I get all I need through Nexstar or BDR or whatnot. And I think that those companies will be the first to tell you that, sure, they'll provide coaching, but, they're not interested at all in fighting for contractor priorities. That is something that only ACCA does. And even if you don't have time to take advantage of all those tangible benefits, we need you in this fight for contractor priorities, because, frankly, I mean, and Greg, I know looking back to, I've got your letter up right here where you were debating the value of your membership. We don't always have the juice to win some of the fights we need to win. And there are powerful interests that we're fighting against sometimes. And we need contractors to make that investment, because you think of even one of these victories that, we're going to talk about that we could have lost, or things that we lost that we could have won, they could make far more than the value of your dues. And I think particularly where we've got, we're really encouraging contractors to become more invested in ACCA by stepping up their membership. We now have new options to become a silver or gold member of ACCA. And we hope it makes dollars and cents, but beyond that, it is more of a bundle of benefits that you're getting at those higher tiers. But beyond that, it's recognition for investing in this fight on behalf of our industry. And particularly, we're hoping that, as industry consolidation gains speed, some of the larger companies out there buying up mom and pops, sure, maybe they got their in-house training resources, but more than ever, we need them in the fight as well, so that, mom and pops aren't carrying all the water on these fights. So,
very true.
Great job, Sean. On the kind of last point that you mentioned there, and Greg, you'll appreciate this, but it doesn't matter if you've got the most amazing training program if there's not a standard of how to do things. So you're going to outprice yourself every time because you're playing against somebody that it's not even on the same field that you are. But yet the customer doesn't know that. The elected officials that are setting the parameters of how we do things, whether it's a state license or some transition like refrigerants and all, that they just don't understand that the fact that we have 17 states in the country without even a license requirement just shows us how much more work we have ahead of us. I mean, heck, there in Ohio, I mean, y'all been working on a license for forever. I mean, it's unbelievable, but it takes muscle to do that. And this is where, people being on the sidelines is not okay.
Absolutely. And and for some of my listeners and viewers, I have not been as active in this as I should have. And I think I did get fired up when I wrote that letter, and I was asking questions about things. And anytime I have a customer who's interested in asking questions and finding out what the value is of them being a customer, it's just a good opportunity to keep that customer. I'd much rather have that than them just quit paying dues and drop out. So, with that in mind, I just posted something the other day that almost 66% of contractors are struggling in business, and that's 6.6 out of 10. But they don't see the value in joining an organization like this that provides all the training you guys provide, and even things for other managers and the mixed groups. I was involved in mixed groups for several years, and just all the best practices that just raise the bar in our industry. Ken Goodrich talks about that a lot. We've talked about it on my show before. But the silver and the gold membership now, I'm definitely interested in that. And just the bundle, which is we do a lot of the bundling too. But let's talk about so the R22 refrigerant. When I came in the industry in about 1988, R22 was out there forever. I mean, R22 was it, right? For residential. For as long as probably Mr. Carrier invented it. I don't know what refrigerant he used, but it wasn't too long after that R22 came out, and it was forever, right? And yeah, we used to do some things wrong where we just cut the lines and let the refrigerant, just escape into the atmosphere and all that stuff. We didn't know any better. It was legal, and that's what we did. And then all of a sudden we tightened the reins a little bit, and everybody had to go out and buy reclaiming equipment and recovery equipment and tanks and all this, thousands of dollars of stuff, right? And then who determined when to change from R22 to what? R410A? Who determined that? The government?
That's where the finger's usually pointed to, but it's we're blessed at ACCA to have lots of manufacturers that are what we refer as partners in contractor excellence. But some of these are almost all international companies. So they're looking at, having more of a world market. So some of those transitions, and we're unique for those that don't know that maybe haven't had a chance to travel outside and see, but we're unique in terms of having the type of systems and how we, have line sets and the refrigerant charge load we have here in the US. So, sometimes we have those type of pressures. We also have political pressures of trying to get ahead. These are oftentimes publicly traded companies, so they may have some social agenda kind of pressure they've got going on driving them. But yes, we would usually point towards the government as driving it. But on the back end, there's different people whispering and saying, yeah, we can do this. And, and they've learned right now, I wish they would have listened to us. We wanted what we refer to as federal preemption. And if they would have done it, we were the lone voice in that. We wouldn't have pardon my French, but the shit show we got going on right now of this transition with refrigerants of states getting ahead of what the feds put in place during the AIM Act. And so we've got this just hot mess going on of you pick your perimeter state, and then you've got, the big players like California, which by the way has less than 10% compliance on how they enforce their own permitting and making sure proper installation is done. So they really don't care about the consumer. They love the press release of, a new SEER rating or a refrigerant transition. Less than 10%, according to one of our partners, which is one of the large reclaimers of refrigerants being recovered. So when you talk about that and having the equipment, you're the exception to the rule. And people are stepping over money. Anyway, I'm jumping around. Sean, you're on the front lines of this stuff on the fight negotiation. I mean, it's meant to be a team effort, but there's lots of different teams. And one of the ones that drives me crazy, many in this industry refer to the environmental groups as the advocates. And over my dead body, do I want us ever to use that term? These are people that are lost total touch with the consumer and actual free market. And they're in cahoots with these environmental groups, working with them to make these transition happen versus something. R24, R22 is a hell of a lot better refrigerant than the new refrigerants we have and the ones that will be after that. And they're going to, the one after A2L will be here right away because no one's even talking about the PFAS issue. But anyway, I'll climb down from my soapbox for a minute. Go ahead, Sean.
Well, I mean, I can riff off some of the things you were just talking about on, where we really fought to try to get federal preemption so you don't have the state patchwork of state regulations. But ultimately, now we're seeing the prices of that, and specifically instances like working with our state, our association in New York to fight New York's regulations, where they are moving ahead even beyond the transition that I'm sure we're going to talk about in a minute to mildly flammable refrigerants. They're looking to start phasing those out in 2030, and also banning virgin refrigerant in just a few years, where I think you're going to see contractors, the reputable contractors are going to be stuck paying a fortune. Their competition is going to be driving across the bridge to New Jersey to buy refrigerant. And I think those kinds of patchwork effects are going to be really painful. And that's the kind of thing that we're working on here now. I think we could, hopefully with your help, we're going to help build a movement here that we'll be able to better manage some of these transitions. And I should say we have done we did our best. I think we had a substantial stake in slowing down the transition to these new mildly flammable refrigerants.
It's some manufacturers that quit supporting ACCA because of it, Greg. That's how hard we were working. And we took this is where we need to be stronger with contractors, because we took it on the chin from that, because they didn't like the amount of pressure we were putting, trying to say this is how you need to do it. And some of that's driven by the, fact that, unlike many of the people working on it, many of us have been political appointees that serve on the ACCA team and been congressional staffers. So we're, sometimes we get folks that are smarter than they're not as smart as they probably think they are on stuff, right, because they never live the actual experience of what it's like on the political side of things.
Sure. So let's, and we're going to name some manufacturers because people need to know who's supporting this, who's not. But when we went to R410A, I mean, I was one of the first contractors in Dayton, Ohio to put a R410A unit in, because my philosophy was, and I was working out of a garage. I said, would you like the new system or the old system? And of course, they're going to say the new system. So I sold a lot of that before anybody even thought about changing refrigerants. I bought into that. I thought, you know what, I may not have agreed with it, but that's where everything was going. So I bought into that, and we really pushed the R410A, the environmentally sound, the environmentally whatever. And so that was it. That was supposed to be it, though. That was environmentally sound refrigerant. So what happened? How many years later? 20 years later, what happened that R410A is no longer environmentally sound and we need something else? I mean, what happened?
Well, the bar got raised again. Politically, we've had a couple of changes in administration. We'll head one way for a little bit, then we'll have a change and go a different direction. So then you've got kind of world pressure in us to be a leader in that space. And we found that 410 also had some pretty tough impacts on our ozone, different than 22. And then you've also got, the environmental groups, the dirty environmental groups that talking about here, they latch on and use it as fundraising tools. So if you're not following the refrigerant stuff, good Lord, it's fascinating. I mean, it's used everywhere from cleaning your keyboard to bear spray to even your inhaler. And they're talking about it. I listen to NPR to kind of, help me kind of balance out some maybe the craziness that I have of how I see the world and get a different perspective. But it's out there. These pressures are coming from all different directions. But it sounds like you were ahead of the times, and hats off to you. But I worked out of my father-in-law's office a bit during COVID because DC was a complete mess, and I needed to put my kids in school. And so we were there in Louisiana, and I got to hear how many calls they do a day still explaining the transition from 22 to 410. Like they're still living it. I mean, I bet a bunch of your listeners feel that right now. And I know myself, the new to me home, it's got systems that are all 410, but I've got, a couple of them that are aged out, but they don't have the new stuff yet. And they certainly don't have people that are comfortable working on it. And so I'm in that, I know enough because I'm surrounded by smart people to know that I'm maybe better off kind of waiting a little bit so I'm not stuck with something, because who knows where the price is going to end up on 410 and all. I mean, it could be the new gold.
Well, just real quickly going back to the why, I mean, if you listen to the advocates, the reasons to move away from R22 were
environmentalists is what Sean meant to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, just using your term, but listening to the environmentalists, the reason to move away from R22 was as an ozone depleting substance, the whole of the ozone layer. But of course, the solution was worse than the cure in that sense, in that listen again, say what you will about the science of global warming. The notion is that 410A is a more potent global warming pollutant, and so they're trying to move to less potent global warming pollutant refrigerants. But in many ways, you're seeing that they're fixated on these refrigerant transitions, but they're ignoring the efficiency of the systems in many cases and slowing down some of the improvements in efficiency by virtue of making systems unaffordably expensive, by completely ignoring quality installation, the work done by contractors to give homeowners more comprehensive system upgrade.
Right.
And if you look at, even if you assume that at the end of life, you're just completely venting out the system, the impact of, the global warming impact of venting that refrigerant pales by comparison to the efficiency of that system throughout its lifetime, both, by having, homeowners be able to afford new equipment, and then also, that equipment is properly installed. I mean, when I first took this job, and I didn't get as deep into my history as Bart did, but part of the reason that he convinced me to come on this job was to just look at that impact that, here the efficiency loss, that calculation, he said half the systems losing 40% of nameplate efficiency. That, when I started, was equivalent to the total capacity of solar panels in the entire country. And nobody's paying attention to it. And we're actually building in incentives and solutions to be able to properly recognize that work that you're doing, as opposed to making these systems unaffordable to your consumers. Focusing in on stuff that we can do to really help them, and by the way, help the comfort of their homes too.
Absolutely.
And comfort. I mean, we hadn't even got into the air quality side of stuff of when homes where the equipment's not sized properly. I mean, you look at the American Lung Association, American Heart Association, some of the staggering numbers of the increases, and as homes get tighter, the more that we have poor installation done, it's just going to exacerbate that problem, and ultimately the cost on taxpayers and the strain on our health system and everything else. I mean,
yeah,
HVAC contractors are far more than something for comfort. I mean, us fighting for essential, who would have thought that we had to do that? And it was like this knockdown, drag out, multi rounds. And, thankfully my neighbor was over cybersecurity and we drink beers together. And I'm like, your server farms, buddy, all of it depends on, the heating and cooling.
that's right.
Just comfort. And I mean, we're seeing that right now in Houston, just the storms that they have. They've already had, several people already pass away from the heat that they're having in May. I mean,
wow. Okay. I just thought that was extremely interesting, and can't wait to get to part 2. So before we wrap up part 1, If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe below. You can also support this podcast by rating and reviewing on iTunes or your preferred listening platform. Keep listening. We'll keep having some good content on here to try to challenge you and help you learn more. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Greg McAfee Show. No spaces, no underscores. Be sure to tune in next week for part 2. And as always, thanks for listening. Carry on. God bless. Make it a great day because we're not promised tomorrow. See you later.